Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's so good to be with you again. I want to welcome our cantorial soloist, Ginny Sigorin, who I know we all love to have with us on Shabbat evening. Welcome, Ginny.
Thank you, Rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. It's just my joy to be here with you all.
So before we begin with our Shabbat service, I sadly want to tell you some news about someone who was part of our community, not a Newbridge resident, and that is Susan Moser, who was our Shabbat service leader on a monthly basis over a 6-year period. So many people who were here 6 years ago and since have known her, but over the past year and a half, due to illness, she hasn't been leading with us, and she passed away last week, and I attended her Zoom Shiva amongst hundreds of others who grieve her loss at such a young age. And I hate to begin a Shabbat service with sad news, but loss is also part of life, and I know that there are people out there, people who've been coming to Shabbat services at Congregation Newbridge, who knew Susan and would want to know this. May her memory be a blessing to all of us, and her music, certainly for me, will keep resounding. So let us take a deep breath and begin with changing gears, lighting Shabbat candles, and welcoming in a spirit of peace and joy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. And now let us bring ourselves together as one community. Despite the walls that divide us, we're all here together in spirit, welcoming Shabbat. And we do that with Hinei Matov, how good it is for brothers and sisters, friends, to be together at this time and together welcoming this sacred space, this sacred time.
Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
For those who have a prayer book, a Siddur, please turn to page 4 for Lechu Neranena.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, nekadma fanav b'todah. נריע, נריע לצור ישנו, בזמירת נריע לו. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה, לכו נרננה לאדוני. 40 שנה אקוט בדור, ואומר עם טועה לבבהם, והם לא ידעו דרכי, אשר נשבעתי באפי, אם יבואון אל מנוחתי.
As one of our psalms for this evening, I will read to you an interpretive improvisation of Psalm 96. Sing a new song to the Holy One with all the names and none. Proclaim our joy and thanksgiving for creation, for life, for growth, for love. Turn your face to the light, rejoice in God. Worship God in the beauty of holiness. Let the whole earth tremble in awe. Call out, there's this beautiful world and all the life in it. And there's the rule of law in our hearts and love at the heart of it all. The heavens rejoice, the earth dances, the seas royal with life, the fields are glad, the trees of the wood shout for joy. Let's continue on page 9 with Psalm 29, Mizmor LeDavid.
הבו לאדוני בני אלים, הבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, הבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, השתחוו לאדוני בהדרת קודש. כל אדוני על המים, אל הכבוד הרים. אדוני, אדוני, על מים רבים. כל אדוני בכוח, כל אדוני בהדר, כל אדוני שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון. וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון, וסריון כמו בן ראמים. כל אדוני חוצב להבות אש, כל אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש. כל אדוני יחולל על ילות, ויחשוף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו, כולו אומר, כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למבול ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
Let's turn now to Lecha Dodi on page 9. Sorry, not page 9, page 11. And we'll sing, as we always do, verses 1, 2, 5, 8, and 9.
Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, נקבלה. lecha dodi, לקראת כלה, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, ישמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי בא אורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תעריצי. על יד איש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
On page 13 is the song for the Sabbath day, and I will read the interpretive translation. It is good to give thanks to the Eternal and to sing praise to the great name, to tell about your love in the morning and your faithfulness every night, with the 10-stringed harp and the lute, in song and meditation. For I delight in your world, source of joy, in your deeds, in the works of your hands. How great are your designs, Creator! They are beyond our comprehension. The foolish do not perceive this. The shallow cannot understand. Though the wicked flourish like the weeds, though they spring up like grass, they will be cut down. For you shine on high forever. Behold, your enemies will perish. The evil ones will fall apart. You lift me. You increase my strength like the wild ram. I am fragrant with oil. I have seen the defeat of my enemies and heard the doom of my attackers. The righteous flourish like palm trees. They grow tall like cedars in Lebanon. Planted in the dark soil of the Holy One, they blossom in the courtyard of our God. Even in old age, they bear fruit. They are green and full of vigor, proclaiming that the source of life is just, our rock, whose way is perfect. And on the left side of page 14, Tzadik Katamar.
Zadik katamar yifrach yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach, ke eres balvanon yiske, ke eres balvanon yiske, ke eres balvanon yiske yiske, ke eres balvanon yiske, ke eres balvanon yiske, que eres balvanon yisker. Zadik katamar yifrach yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach, zadik katamar yifrach, que eres balvanon yisker, que eres balvanon yisker, que eres balvanon yisker yisker.
On page 15, we turn to the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash merabah. Yalma divrach yirutev yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedcho bet Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uv'izman karif v'yimaru. Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevarach Le'alam Ulam Mehamayar Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shmeir Kudsha Barichu Le'ela Min kol birchata v'shirata Tush b'chata v'nechemata Damiran b'alma v'yimaru Amen.
This week's Torah portion is titled Re'eh, which means look, see, or behold. The Israelites are at the Jordan River, about to enter the promised land. Continuing his parting speech, Moses reminds them of their covenantal relationship with God. Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha v'klala. Look, behold, I set before you today blessing and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I instruct you this day, and curse if you do not obey and turn away from the path upon which I direct you this day. This covenant was introduced by Moses in last week's Torah portion. Quote, and if you do obey these commandments and observe them carefully, the Lord your God will maintain faithfully for you the covenant that he made on oath with your fathers. According to the traditional count, God gave the Israelites a total of 613 commandments. Many could only be performed in the Jerusalem temple. Others could only be performed in the land of Israel, leaving 245 mitzvot that can be performed right here in Dedham, Massachusetts. They include all-time favorites like thou shalt not murder, tough ones like thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, and complicated ones like you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Traditional Orthodox Judaism strives to obey as many of these commandments as possible. But for Jews to the left of Orthodoxy, many of the commandments no longer hold sway. We may feel, for example, that Shabbat is special, but there are dozens of Shabbat laws that we choose not to observe. So how then do we relate to the opening lines of this week's Torah portion? I set before you blessing if you obey the commandments, and curse if you do not? How do we understand the covenant if we no longer obey many of its biblical commandments? Perhaps by reminding ourselves that the Bible is a snapshot in time along Judaism's 3,000-year-long evolution. Judaism's roots can be traced long before the Bible formed. It continued to evolve through the Mishnah and Talmud, through the Middle Ages, through the Enlightenment and Emancipation, and into our modern era of denominational Judaism, as well as secular Judaism. Imagine a Jewish time traveler visiting Jewish communities in different periods of history and finding them both remarkably similar and yet radically different. There would be both the familiarity of Shabbat and the strangeness of ancient Judaism's animal sacrifices and slavery, familiar prayers, as well as beliefs so different from Judaism as we know it today in North America. But most importantly, our time traveler would discover that throughout our long and winding history, we have maintained a passionate relationship with our primary texts, the Torah and the books of the prophets, from which our modern practices, beliefs, and attitudes have gradually evolved. We mine these texts for wisdom and guidance. We reinterpret them, seeking their underlying principles to help us navigate new realities and challenges that call for creative responses and solutions. For example, in this week's Parsha, Moses admonishes the Israelites, "Lo ta'asun kachol asher anachnu osim po hayom ish kol hayashar be'enav." You shall not act as we now act here, every man as he pleases. Moses is referring here to the manner in which commandments were practiced in the desert. No longer will each individual be allowed to offer sacrifices where and when he saw fit, but rather communal worship would coalesce around a single sanctuary to be built in a location of God's choosing. After the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, Moses' admonition, "You shall not act every man as he pleases," was reinterpreted as a central principle of Judaism, that of each individual's responsibility to the well-being of the community. For the past 6 months, we have been observing this mitzvah every time we maintain social distancing or wear a mask, because we take our communal responsibility very seriously. When we seek the underlying principles that have animated the Jewish tradition throughout its history, we find meaningful values for a responsible, mindful, and spiritually rich life. We read in last week's Torah portion, "Ve'ahavtem et hager, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim." You must befriend the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. These words have inspired a covenant we hold dear, rooted in Jewish history and text, a covenant that encourages us towards tikkun olam, repairing the world. And our world is indeed in dire need of repair. The age of coronavirus has brought us face to face with the lethal consequences of racial and economic inequality in our society. And while we haven't managed to put a contemporary spin on many of the biblical commandments, this injunction, "Ve'ahavtem et hager, ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim," befriend the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt, speaks to us loud and clear across the millennia. It requires no reinterpretation. Having experienced vulnerability, we are uniquely sensitized to act on behalf of the vulnerable in our midst. And so, as individuals, as a community, and as a nation, poised on the banks of the Jordan River, we are inspired to do our part in this covenant that will enable us to cross safely to the promised land. Shabbat Shalom. So now we turn to the evening service on page 16. If you have it, please rise in body or spirit, whatever feels right for you, for Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed.
On page 16, let's read, You Bring on Evenings. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe. Your word brings on evenings. With wisdom, you open heaven's gates. With understanding, you change fixed times and alternate the seasons and arrange the stars in their places in the sky according to your will. Creator of day and night, rolling light before darkness and darkness before light, you cause day to pass and bring on night, and distinguish between day and night. God of all forces is your name. God, living and enduring, always rule over us forever and ever. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evenings. On page 17, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbeinu u'v'kumenu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orach yameinu, ve'orach yameinu, uvahem negeh yomam v'layla, yomam v'layla. Ve'avatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch ata Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto le'olam va'ed.
Page 18, Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'atecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
On page 19, I'll read an interpretive translation of the second paragraph of the Shema. If you listen to my commandments and do them, the rain that falls on your fields will also fall on your lives, enabling everything to grow. Your fields will be fruitful, and your animals will be fruitful, and you will be fruitful in body and in spirit. But if you turn away from my commandments, then you will also turn away from my rain. You will no longer be aware of this blessing and its source, so that for you the rain will no longer exist. Your fields will no longer be fruitful, and your lives will no longer bear fruit. Listen to my commandments, be mindful of my blessings, and inherit the promises I made to your ancestors, of fields rich with my bounty, of lives rich with my presence. We continue on page 20, line 4, with the conclusion of the third paragraph of the Shema, Leman Tizkaru.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On page 21, 2 paragraphs from the bottom, Mi chamocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראובנך, בוקיים לפני משה. שאלי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
On page 22, lay us down in peace. Lay us down, Adonai our God, in peace, and awaken us, our ruler, to life, and spread over us your sukkah of peace, and help us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us and remove from us enemy, disease, and sword, and hunger, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces from before us and from behind us, and in the shadow of your wings, shelter us. For God, you watch over us and rescue us. For God, you are gracious and merciful ruler. Watch over our going and coming for life and for peace, from now until forever. And spread over us your sukkah of peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, the one who spreads a sukkah of peace over us and over all your people Israel and over Jerusalem. On page 23, an opportunity to rise in body or spirit for Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We turn to page 25 for the Amidah, the silent prayer. We'll begin by chanting the first three blessings together, and then we'll take a few moments either to complete the traditional Amidah in the prayer book or your own prayers directly from your own heart, and then we'll join together again at the end.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Oh God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Koneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevii Goel Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham u'Foked Sarah. Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei metim ata Rav le'Hoshia. Morid hatav, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayei metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech cholim, Umatzir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melech, melech memit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emar atah lachayot mitim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hametim. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Now we continue silently.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We turn to page 130 for the Mi Sheberach, the prayer for healing. And as has become our custom during coronavirus times, we also add in a prayer for the health and healing of healers. And even though here in Massachusetts we are doing pretty well, we are not out of the woods here yet, and certainly not in other parts of this country and other parts of the world. So this prayer goes for close to home, to loved ones who are in all of these different professions that are so much part of our survival at this time, as well as those who are out there far away in other parts. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians and nurses and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those they have sworn to help. Bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them. Source of all breath, healer of all beings, protect them and restore their hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength. Keep them in health that they may bring healing. Help us to know again a time without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass from among us speedily and in our days. Amen. And now the prayer for those who need healing. I will read the traditional words and mention a few names, some aloud, some people have asked me to say softly, and I invite you to say aloud or in your hearts names of those who you are praying for healing. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov, veimotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel veLeah, hu yevarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Chaya bat Nechama, Baruch ben Adam Natan v'Sarah Hana. הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחלימם ולרפאותם, להחזיקם ולהחיותם, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, השתבגלה בזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן.
Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha laimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Let us turn back to page 41 to Aleinu. And again, a time you may wish to rise in body or spirit.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרמים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבת על לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
On page 44, we come to the Mourner's Kaddish. I am mentioning the name of Marianne St. Andre, the daughter-in-law of Helene and Alan Koenigsberg. May her memory be a blessing, and also Susan Moser, may her memory be a blessing. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach Yeruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon ve'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'al v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadal v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, Shemei de Kudsha Brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom alenu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. Before we conclude our service with Adon Olam, I want to thank Ginny for leading with me. It's always just a joy to do this together. And I know that we all look forward to a time when we can all be here in Congregation Newbridge's sacred space with the room full of people and the dividing door open to allow for all of us to be here. But in the meanwhile, Congregation Newbridge knows no boundaries, and wherever you are part of this. Next week on Wednesday, first of all, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock is the Shabbat morning service led by Rabbi Karen Landy, and it will be on channel 918. And then on Wednesday at 11 o'clock, there will be a live Torah study group on Zoom. So everybody is welcome. If you haven't been before, if you don't consider yourself a regular at Torah study, don't worry. Just come. I won't pick on anybody and expect you to know more than you feel comfortable saying. It's just a nice opportunity to be gathered together and to be a part of the Torah study group. And I hope that many of you will give it a try, or if you've tried it before, come again and be part of the conversation or just part of the learning community. And before you know it, it will be Shabbat again, and we'll gather one more time. I wanted to let you know I'm thinking a lot about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which this year, of course, is going to be really different. We are working on plans that will make it as meaningful and participatory as we possibly can make it under these very unusual circumstances. And as soon as plans are more clear and worked out, we will send them out, but they are in the works, and Rabbi Karen and Cantor Lisa Kippen-Hershenson and I have already met several times preparing ourselves for the service, and we will soon send out information to you. So don't worry, we haven't forgotten that it's just 5 weeks away. Wow. So we will conclude with Adon Olam, a new tune.
Well, it's new for Adon Olam, but it's not a new melody. So I have to just tell you quickly, I was listening to a wonderful concert that was put on by the National Yiddish Theatre by the artistic director, and the theme was about Yiddish summer camps. And this song that he played, an Israeli song, was a huge hit in the Yiddish summer camps. And I thought, that's a great inspiration for us to use that tune for Adon Olam tonight. And I know that you're going to know it. So I'm going to imagine you all joining in.
Do you want to say what tune it's from?
They will know it.
They will know. Okay, I won't give it.
But at the end, we'll say.
Okay.
Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra Li'etnasa v'chepzer kol azay melech shemo nikra V'yacharei kichlot hakol levado himloch nora V'hu haya v'hu hover v'hu yiyah b'tifara V'hu echad v'en sheni lahamshil lo להחבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיר רוחי בתשען ויהירה ועם רוחי גוויעתי אדוני לי ולא ירא Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Of course, it was Tsena Tsena.
It was great, a nice, fun, and joyful tune to conclude our service. And now Ginny will make Kiddush for us. So if you have a cup of wine or grape juice handy, please feel free to join in with the Kiddush.
ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום השישי ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו באהבה ורצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim.
לחיים.
And here a familiar halakava and our halot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Good Shabbos, everybody. I hope you have a restful, peaceful, and enjoyable Shabbat. And I look forward to getting together with you again during the week.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Lots of love.